there, Nation. Welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with another episode of the Quarantine Chronicles. This is battle report number 2, and it is a kill team battle report that is fought between the Shrieking Masquerade of the Emperor's Children versus the Cradle of Death of the Death Guard. So, if in case you're wondering, the Quarantine Chronicles is a series of solo gaming battle reports, and the reason why is because of course, the current ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and some of the concerns that a lot of people are having, of course, with trying to stay safe and not get contaminated by it, and also getting infected. Like I said before, a lot of my members of my gaming group have families that family members are really concerned about. So because of that, we're going to limit their exposure and limit their risk of catching it just by staying home and staying in place and sheltering in place for the most part. So because of that, I decided to do this series of battle reports just on my own. So if you'll notice, there is no players screen names on the list here, because it's just me by myself playing both sides of this one, which makes it kind of interesting. Solo wargaming is a new experience for me for sure, but at the same time, though, it's also kind of unique because I get to learn the rules better of a game, and I also get to see exactly what it'd be like to actually fight this out. So it's actually kind of cool. Alright, so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play a Feint scenario on this one. So if you want to see exactly what each of the kill teams bring for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so the mission for this one is Feint, as you can see in this one. So you can see pretty much how it works is that both sides of the battlefield are divided along the midsection of the board vertically. So the left-hand side, of course, is where the Shrieking Masquerade is deployed, and the right-hand side is where the Cradle of Filth is located at. If you also notice, there's also 3 sets of barrels on the right-hand side and 3 sets of crates on the left-hand side. Those are objective markers, and the goal of the battle, of course, is for the attacker, which is played by the Shrieking Masquerade in this scenario. Their job is to try to destroy as many objective markers as they possibly can and put out as many defending fighters out of action as possible. While on the other hand, for the defenders, which is the Death Guard in this case, their job is to protect as many of these objectives as they possibly can and hopefully just kind of defeat their enemy that way. The defenders get more bonus victory points for defending objectives than the attackers do for destroying them, and that's pretty much how it kind of lays out. So with that being said, with the mission results over, let's go and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so starting off with the Death Guard up here in the top right hand corner, we basically have a small little kill team of Plague Bearers. Up on the top, that is Urg, the Pestilent, who's a Plague Ridden, he's got a Plague Sword. Next to him, of course, is Glouch Gibbleglory, as well as Trudge Deathbile. Glouch Gibbleglory is a Plague Bearer Hornblower, and Trudge Deathbile is a Plague Bearer Icon Bearer. Glouch Gibbleglory is carrying a Plague Sword as well as an Instrument of Nurgle, so that way they get rerolls for charges and advances. At the same time, Trudge Deathbile is carrying an Icon of Nurgle for negative leadership effects as well. Also looking over there, there's couples of Plague Bearers. We have Boil Ruined, Festering Jawbreaker, and Dueling Slint. Those are the little Plague Bearers we're looking in that area as well. And that pretty much makes a little posse up there in the top right-hand corner of the battlefield. In the middle of the Death Guard's deployment area, right there in the back, that is Festimus the Bellman. He's the Tallyman Commander. He's got a Plasma Pistol, Blight, as well as Frag Grenades. He's also a Strategy Specialist. Right in front of him is Malignus Dire Song, who's a Plague Marine Fighter. He's also packing a Plague Knife, a Flail of Corruption. He's got Blight as well as Frag Grenades. He's also a Combat Expert as well. And then right in front of them are 5 Poxwalkers. The one in the middle, that is Thrax the Reeking. He is a Poxwalker, who's also a Zealot Specialist. And right next to him, of course, are 4 other Poxwalkers. Cool. We have Briggs, Darrows, Gallows, and Dirge, and those guys are just normal Poxwalkers for the most part. And finally, on the bottom right-hand corner of the deployment area, we have a squad of Plague Marines. In the back there, that is Sherlow the Riven. He is a Plague Marine champion. He's equipped with Power Fist, Plasma Gun. He's got Blight as well as Frag Grenade. He's also a Leader Specialist. Right in front of him is another Plague Marine. That guy is Goldcorn Motor Mold. He's just a normal Plague Marine. He's equipped with Plague Knife. He's got a Plasma Gun as well as Blight as well as Frag Grenades, Crack Grenades as well. Now, right beneath him on the ground level, that is Gerlach Motor Mold. He is a Plague Marine Gunner. He's got a Plague Knife as well as Blight Grenades. He's also carrying a Blight Launcher with the crack grenades. He's also the heavy specialist as well. And of course, right next to him, of course, is let me take a look here. My little notes here. That's Bubo the Rancid. There we go. He's a Plague Marine. He's also got a bolt gun. He's also got black as well as crack grenades, and he's also got the Icon of Despair. And that pretty much makes a deployment here in the final right-hand corner for the Death Guard. So, jumping to the left-hand corner of the battlefield, then the bottom left-hand corner, this is the Emperor's Children's deployment. In the back there, that is Naxos Feint Slayer. He's a Chaos Space Marine gunner. He's packing a plasma gun. He's got a bolt pistol as well as frag and crack grenades. Also got the Marcus Lanesh. Right in front of him at the top, that is Xandar the Black. He's a Chaos Space Marine with bolt gun, bolt pistol, frag and crack grenades. Right beneath him is Zaydu Vorlas. He's an aspiring champion. He's got a plasma pistol, power fist, flag and crack grenades. He's also the leader specialist for this warband as well. In the middle of the deployment area for the Emperor's Children of the Shrieking Masquerade, right there in the center, that's Telemach and Lyris. He's a master of possession. He's represented by the Noise Marine miniature right there. He's got a bolt pistol as well as frag and crack grenades. He's also got a force stave. He's also got the Psyker specialism as well. Right in front of him on the top there, that is Ashrok the Mad. He is a possessed. He's got horrifying mutations, and he's also the Zealot specialist. Right beneath him is Talos the Perfect, who's another possessed. He's got horrifying mutations. He's also the combat specialist. And right there in the back left-hand side, that is Zekir Canislar. He is a Chaos Space Marine gunner. He's packing a heavy bolter with bolt pistol, frag and crack grenades. He's also the heavy specialist in this kill team as well. And finally, top left-hand corner here, we have a little posse of cultists. In the back there, that is a Chaos Cultist gunner named Jago. He's armed with a heavy stubber. Right in front of him, working from the top all the way down, we have another Chaos Cultist named Thestis' name. He's equipped with an auto gun. Right next to him is Trestle, who's another Chaos Cultist. He's got an auto pistol as well as brutal close combat weapon. And then right beneath him is their champion, which his name is Kfax. He's a Chaos Cultist champion, armed with a shotgun. Right beneath him, of course, is Renko. Renko is a Chaos Cultist gunner armed with a flamer, and then right behind him is Fabian, which is a Chaos Cultist with auto pistol as well as a brutal assault weapon. And that pretty much makes up the deployment on this one. So deployment already over with, we go directly to the top of the turn number 1 for initiative phase, and I roll off for initiative to see which of these kill teams will be going first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Death Guard got the initiative on this one. So the very first thing that happens, as you can see here, is the Death Guard move as quickly as they can across the battlefield for the most part. First of all, the Plague, the Poxwalkers right there in the middle of the table, they pretty much advance forward as quickly as they can, trying to bog down, make some way to make contact with the Possessed. Poxwalkers are really good at bogging down their opponents, and that's exactly how they're being used. At the same time, Festimus the Tallyman is also going in there for support as well. Same thing with Malignus Darius Song, the combat specialist, to add an extra additional punch for those Poxwalkers. Now, while that's occurring, the Plague Bearers up at the top of the screen there, they're also trying to flank around the left-hand side, around that smokestack, so that way they can make their way to the very first of their areas. They actually get countercharged, of course, by the Emperor's Children, but we'll talk about that here in a second. So you can see that they're kind of scattered up top. Meanwhile, on the very bottom of the screen as well, we got 2 Plague Marines crossing the battlefield as quick as they can, engaging in close combat with the members of the Emperor's Children down there on the left-hand side. At the same time, they're being watched by Sherlo as well as one of the Murder Mold Builders with their plasma guns laying on Overwatch. At the same time, we also have the Plague Marines equipped with a Blight Launcher, Goldcorn Murder Mold. He's moving his way along the scrap piles there towards the center, making his way towards the enemy. Now, while that has occurred, of course, across the battlefield, the Shrieking Masquerade get to go next. First of all, they start taking the offensive, what they end up doing. So they actually send charging in a couple of their fighters. Chaos Cultist on the top, as well as one of their guys with a flamer. He kind of goes right beneath that smokestack to open up this flamer directly into the Poxwalkers as well. At the same time, a ready marker is put on the other Chaos Cultist gunner who's armed with a heavy stub in the top left-hand corner, so that way he can shoot as well. Now, while that's occurring, of course, the Possessed, of course, do try to move up as quickly as they can. They try to charge forward into the Poxwalkers in the center, but they fail their charges and only advance a couple inches forward that way. At the same time, another ready marker is placed on Naxos Feint Slayer, which is the Chaos Space Marine armed with a plasma gun in the bottom left-hand corner, so that way you can defend that objective marker. And the same thing as another ready marker is also placed on what's his name, the gunner there on the left-hand side. That is Zekir Canislar. He's the guy who's armed with a heavy bolter. He's over there in the back behind the little scrap pile there on the left-hand side. And at the same time, Telemach and Lyris moves up to kind of protect that middle objective and hopefully destroy it. Now, while that's occurring, of course, the regular Space Marine Xandar the Black, as well as the champion Zaydu Vorlas, they charge forward and engage the Plague Marines in close combat, and that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. So So here's a close-up of the action taking place here in the bottom of the screen here. As you can see, we have Zandyar the Black as well as Zaydu Vorlas charge directly into Bubo the Rancid, engaging that guy in close combat. So that Space Marine's engaged in close combat. And right behind him, we can see another Space Marine trying to move as quickly as he can in order to help them out. Meanwhile, on the top, you can see Gerlach Muttermold as he slowly makes his way across the battlefield to engage his targets with his Blight Launcher. Meanwhile, here's a close-up of the center as well as bottom left corner of the battlefield. As you can see, we have two members of the kill team of the Emperor's Children right here, kind of basically just putting Overwatch for the most part. You've got Naxos Face Slayer there on the bottom left-hand corner, protecting that objective with a ready marker, getting ready to open fire with his plasma gun. Also, at the same time, right above him, of course, is Zakir Canislar. He's also got another ready marker, so that way he can shoot first during the shooting phase, so that we can put some Overwatching fire with his heavy bolter. And you can see Telemaque and Lyris, the Master Possessions, kind of tucked up there in the middle there in order to secure that objective and hopefully destroy it at the end of the turn. Meanwhile, on the center of the table, you can see that the wave of Poxwalkers making their way toward the center, and you can also see the two possessed Talos the Perfect, who's on the bottom there, as well as Ashrok the Mad on the top, trying to make their way directly towards the Poxwalkers. Now, at the same time, Malignus Niresong, the fighter armor of the Fel of Corruption, as well as Festus the Bellman, they're also supporting these Poxwalkers assaulting in the center. Meanwhile, here's a close-up of the top left-hand corner as well as the top of the battlefield. As you can see, the Chaos Cultists are moving around the smokestacks to start assaulting against the Plague Bearers on the other side. At the same time, you can also see Renko on the bottom there getting ready to open up with his Flamer, as well as Jago on the background trying to secure some Overwatching fire with his Heavy Stubber. At the same time, Fabian is also securing the ejector mark on the top there so that we can destroy it by the end of his turn. And the upper right corner, here's a close-up. As you can see, we have Trestle and Thest trying to move up and try to stop the advance of the Plague Bearers, going directly into Urg the Pestilent, as well as being followed by Gouch Gibble Glory, as well as Trudge Deathbile, as they kind of make their way and kind of divide up their little squad of Plague Bearers into two, heading down in opposite directions. And lastly, here's a close-up of Gerlach Muttermold, sorry, not Gerlach Muttermold, of Goldcore Muttermold, as well as Shirley the Ribbon. Just got ready markers right next to them so that way they can open up with their plasma guns when the time comes during the shooting phase. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the psychic phase. And the psychic phase, just showing just how powerful exactly a Master Possessions can actually be. First of all, Telemaque and Lyris managed to get off the Cursed Earth ability. What that does, that basically gives all possessed within 6 inches of him, plus one of the demonic saves. So these guys are now demonic save 4 up. So they're very, very kitted out for saving on that one. It's really good to help them out, especially in the close combat. That effect lasts until the next psychic phase. At the same time, he also matches a side bolt directly into one of the Poxwalkers, managed to blast that guy right off the table and put him out of action. So with the second phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, things did not go out according to plan for the Shrieking Masquerade. First of all, as you can see here, Renko, which is the guy who's armed with the Flamer, he does cut loose with his Flamer directly into Festus the Bellman. But unfortunately for him, though, he just wasn't able to wound for the most part. So because of that, nothing much really happened. At the same time that occurred, however, I believe it was Festus the Bellman actually shot him right center in a dead mass with his plasma pistol, managed to put him directly out of action as well, which is all kinds of bad for that guy. At the same time, Gerlach Muttermold, the Plague Marine Heavy, who's armed with a Blight Launcher, opens up directly into Naxos Faith Slayer, managed to put a flesh wound on him as well. And to make matters worse, of course, during the morale phase, he fails his nerve test. It's because that he is shaken, which means he will not be able to do anything for the rest of the turn. So that part is pretty crazy as well. So the rest of the shooting phase was the wash. We go directly to the combat phase. You can see for the most part, combat between Bubo the Rancid as well as Zaydu Vorlas basically just went nowhere for the most part. And the crazy part was, because these guys are Emperor's Children, what ends up happening is that if any one of their fighters is within 1 inch of an enemy model, they actually count as being having charged. So because of that, with that Flawless Perfection ability, at the same time, Zandyar the Black is also able to attack as well, which is actually kind of interesting, seeing how these guys can actually attack, even though they may not have charges as the target of the charge, which is actually kind of cool. So it makes these guys quite deadly in close combat, which is interesting for an Emperor's Children kill team. But anyways, unfortunately though, they're able to wound Bubo the Rancid, which is making his disgustingly resilient saves like he just couldn't lose. So because of that, he was perfectly fine. And exactly the same thing occurs up here on the top of the battlefield. As you can see, Urg the Pestilent was able to do anything against Trestle, so because of that, their combat's just kind of going on for another round as well. So with that, we go back directly to the morale phase. I mentioned before, unfortunately, Naxos Faith Slayer, though, he failed his leadership test because that he is considered shaken because he took a flesh wound, so he won't be able to do anything for the next round. And at the end of the turn, the Emperor's Children, of course, burn up 2 command points. Telemaque and Lyris burns up 1 command point so that we can destroy one of the objectives right there in the center of the battlefield. And the last command point they had for this round is also destroyed, as Fabian basically destroys a second objective, was located on the top of their deployment zone as well. So because of that, both of those deployment zones, both of those objectives are destroyed, and 2 victory points directly for the Emperor's Children. So with the end of turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the end of the turn. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, the advance of the Death Guard are taking the offensive on this one, which is interesting because of the defenders on this. They're going on the offense for the most part. The Poxwalkers aren't really doing much of anything. The Plague Bearers on the top, as well as the Plague Marines on the bottom, have pretty much been stopped for the most part. Shooting has been kind of lackluster for this first turn of the round of the turn because of the distance involved with the Obscured ability, as well as long distance shooting. You know, get the minuses to hit against. So it's actually kind of interesting how it pretty much works out. Pretty much, it's kind of like there's no clear winner right now at the end of turn number 1, so it's kind of interesting to see exactly how it lays out. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both the Death Guard as well as the Emperor's Children roll off for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2, and this time the Emperor's Children managed to get the initiative on this one, and this photo is taken after the move phase, and as you can see, once again, the Plague Marines and the Death Guard is trying to keep on going with their advance as well. They charge forward with their Poxwalkers directly into the Possessed in the middle of the battlefield with Malignus Dire Song as well as Festivus the Bellman in tow. At the same time, they also continue their advance in the bottom of the screen as well, sending both their Plague Marines directly into Zadu Vorlas as well as Zandiar the Black right there in that bottom row in the bottom center of the battlefield. At the same time, Goldcorn Muttermold continues on his assault directly to objective number 3 there in the bottom left-hand corner by heading up forward, and the reason why he's able to do this is because Naxos Faith Slayer, who is the Chaos Space Marine who's armed with a plasma gun, can't do anything to stop him because he's unfortunately shaken for the most part. At the same time, as you can see that the Chaos Cultists on the top left-hand corner is also starting to reroute their attacks, heading down to the south in order to intercept the Plague Bearers, who are also trying to join in the center as well. At the same time, we got the Plague Champion as well as another Plague Marine over there in the back right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, putting Overwatch with their plasma guns. And that pretty much makes the move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the Plague Bearers trying to move down from along the smokestack there, trying to push their advance. At the same time, you can see that the Chaos Cultists are also responding in kind, trying to intercept them from flanking from the top of the battlefield. And here's a close-up of Shrill the Riven as well as Goldcorn Motor Mold with ready markers on them, so that way they can fire first during the shooting phase. And here's a close-up of Bubo the Rancid as well as his fellow Plague Marine moving up as quickly as they possibly can in order to engage in close combat with Zadu Vorlas as well as Zandiar the Black here on the bottom of the battlefield. And here's a close-up of the center portion of the battlefield. As you can see, the Poxwalkers have charged directly into the two Possessed. Ashrok the Mad on the top is fighting two Poxwalkers, as well as Malignus Dire Song, the Plague Marine fighter, which is absolutely terrifying. At the same time, in the bottom there, you got Telos the Perfect. He's also facing off against two other Poxwalkers as well. At the same time, you can see that Gerlach Motor Mold is taking towards his advance directly at the bottom of the screen there. At the same time, Naxos Faith Slayer, he can't do anything because he's shaken at this point. Shaken at this point. Shaken at this point. At the same time, at the top there in the back left-hand side, you can also see that heavy gunner, Zakir Kalasar, he's pretty much standing his ground with his ready marker, and at the same time, Telemach and Lyris is also staying exactly where he's at as well. And finally, here's a close-up of the Chaos Cultists moving as quick as they possibly can over to the bottom there to intercept the Plague Bearers, as well as Jago, who's the Chaos Cultist gunner with the Heavy Stubber, just standing his ground with a ready marker, getting ready to shoot in the shooting phase. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the Psychic phase. So once again, in the second phase, Telemach and Lyris managed to get Cursed Earth again, right off again for his two Possessed. So because of that, Telos the Perfect, as well as Ashrok the Mag, get +1 to their invulnerable saves for their demonic saves. It makes them extremely difficult to kill in close combat. And at the same time, he also managed to cast Psybolt off and managed to put a flesh wound directly onto Goldcorn Mold, which would have been really bad for Gerlach had that been an out-of-action result, but he got really lucky on that part as well. So with that Psybolt over with, that pretty much ends the Psychic phase. So with the Psychic phase over with, we go directly to the Shooting phase. And the only impressive shooting taking place in the entire turn was actually with Gerlach Muttermold opening up with his Blight launch directly into Naxios Faith Slayer. Managed to kill that guy and put him directly out of action, and also securing the bottom objective for the Death Guard as well. Pretty much the rest of the shooting was pretty much lackluster. Just that -1 hit against because of the obscurity rules is making it very difficult for these guys to land shots on each other. So that part was absolutely insane to me. So with the shooting phase over, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, here in the middle of the table, the Emperor's Children just show exactly how dangerous they could possibly be in close combat. And the reason why is because of that ability where they're basically within an inch of an enemy of the fight phase, they count as being charged. So because of that ability, the Zealot, which was really there on the top of the screen there, which is Ashrock the Mad, yeah, that really helped him out a lot because he got +1 to his strength as well as +1 to his attacks. He actually, Malignus Dire Song actually struck first, what he ended up doing, trying to hurt him, but unfortunately for him, he just flubbed his rolls. So because that, Malignus was able to do anything directly against Ashrock the Mad. Same thing with the Poxwalkers, they're just pretty much combat effective against that Possessed. Meanwhile, that Possessed, Ashrock the Mad directed all of his attacks directly into Malignus Dire Song, managed to put that poor guy out of action as well, just killing him outright. At the same time, on the bottom of the screen, of course, the two Poxwalkers fighting against Talos the Perfect weren't able to do much of anything, and Talos the Perfect, of course, just put the smackdown on those poor plagues, those Poxwalkers, killing them both, and then following through, making his way directly to Festivus the Bellman, which is the commander of the Cradle of Filth. And once again, up here at the top of the screen, combat was pretty much lackluster for the most part. Urg the Pestilent was unable to do anything against, against Trestle. And at the same time, same thing with Trudge Deathpile. He wasn't able to do anything against that Chaos Cultist either. At the same time, though, the Chaos Cultist managed to put a flesh wound onto Urg the Pestilent as well. So it doesn't really do much of him in terms of killing him. But at the same time, you know, something wrong where Chaos Cultist actually has more hitting power than the Plague Bear in my opinion. So with the combat phase over, we go directly to the battle phase. And to make matters worse, Urg the Pestilent fails his cool test with his leadership role, so because of that, he is also shaken as well, so he will not be able to do anything for the rest of the next turn, which is just perfect, considering that it was only a Chaos Cultist he was fighting against. So with the morale phase over with, that pretty much takes us to the end of turn number 2. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 2, and as you can see, for the most part, the Emperor's Children are actually holding their own quite effectively against the advancing hordes of the Death Guard. They're actually quite good in close combat, who I would never have suspected that, given their history. But then again, you know, I don't really play 40k all that often, so, you know, who am I to judge at this point? As you can see, the Possessed are just cleaning house with those Poxwalkers right there in the middle. At the same time, the Chaos Cultists from the Emperor's Children have also pretty much blunted the advance of the Plague Bearers up in the top. The same thing is occurring here in the bottom of the screen, with those Plague Marines tying up those regular Space Marines from the Emperor's Children, tying up those Plague Marines down the bottom as well. Not much really happened for them in combat because, you know, nobody could wound each other, but at the same time, very, very effective use. Now, the Emperor's Children are kind of in danger because they do have secured the Death Guard have secured another objective point, so they're controlling 4 objective markers at this point, which is not such a good thing for the Emperor's Children. But at the same time, though, Emperor's Children are not doing such a bad job either. So that being said, that ends turn number 2. We go directly to the top of turn number 3, and both the Emperor's Children and the Death Guard roll out for initiative to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Death Guard. This time they managed to get the initiative. And as you can see, for the most part, not much movement has really occurred for the most part. Not anywhere on the flanks anyways. Pretty much just took place mainly in the center. What ended up happening is that Talos the Perfect actually charged directly into Festivus the Bellman, engaging him in close combat. So because of that, the Death Guard actually countercharged with some of their Plague Bearers, heading down south directly to intercept into Talos the Perfect. So that way he's got fighting against both Festivus the Bellman as well as 2 of the Plague Bearers. While it's occurring at the same time, I believe it's Ashrock the Mad actually charges in directly into another Plague Bearer in order to finish that guy off. And same with Telemachus Lyran, he also moves up forward as well and starts going against another Poxwalker to put some pressure in the center there and make his way down. At the same time, the Chaos Cultists also charge down from the top directly into the Plague Bearers above, so that way they can get engaged in close combat as well. And finally, the only real dramatic movement, of course, was Gerlach, the Mother Mold, which is actually one of the guys on with plasma guns. He actually drops down from the top of the saloon there, makes his way across the battlefield next to that scrap pile, and then Shirley the Riven also kind of follows up with him. And that pretty much makes it the move phase for this one. So here's a close-up of the bottom of the battlefield. As you can see, for the most part, everyone's pretty much the same exactly they were last time. The 2 Plague Marines on the bottom there are still fighting Zadie Vorlas, as well as fighting against Zandiar the Black. At the same time, you can see that Goldcorn Mother Mold is now officially secured objective marker number 4, which is right there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. And here's a close to the bottom right-hand corner of the battlefield with Goldcorn Mother Mold jumping off the roof of the saloon and making his way to that scrap pile. At the top, you got Shirley the Riven also providing Overwatch with his plasma gun. Meanwhile, here's a close-up of the melee that's just occurring right here in the middle of the battlefield. As you see, Telos the Perfect is charged directly into Festivus the Billman, and he's also engaged with 2 other members of the Plague Bearers as well, primarily with the Piper, Glouch Gibbleglory, as well as Boiling Ruin, I believe what that guy's name is. At the same time, Festering Jawblaker as well as Doolin Slint, they're also engaged right now at the top there with, I believe that guy's name is Thestis, his name. He's engaged in close combat. At the same time, you can see that Kyphax is trying to move his way down south as well. At the same time, Ashrock the Mad is still engaged with his Plague Bear, his little Poxwalker there in the middle. At the same time, you can see that Telemachus Lyran is also charged forward as well and engaged with that Poxwalker too. Meanwhile, in the background here, we got Zek here, Canislar. He's actually the gunner's arm with the heavy bolter. He's got a little ready mark on him so that we can shoot during the shooting phase. And the exact same thing is happening with Jago the Chaos Cultist up here in the top left-hand corner with his heavy stepper with a ready marker on him. And finally, here's a close-up of Trestle as well as Urg the Pestilent, still engaged in close combat with Glouch Gibbleglory, and not much is really happening there on the top. And this can be kind of also frustrating too because that Plague Ridden is also currently shaken, so you can't do much of anything for this turn either. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the second phase. So during the second phase, once again, Telemach and Lyris managed to get Cursed Earth once again for both Telos the Perfect as well as Ashrock the Mad, giving them +1 to their invulnerable saves. So because of that, they're both a little bit harder to kill now in close combat, which is actually kind of good for them. At the same time, he also managed to use Cybolt once again, killing the Poxwalker. He was currently engaged in close combat, managed to kill that guy off without any problems whatsoever. So the second phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So during the shooting phase, the only significant shooting took place right here on the left-hand side of the battlefield. First of all, what's his name? Zakir Canislar. He actually managed to go first with his shooting because he had a ready marker on him. So because he cuts loose this heavy bolter, and he pretty much did nothing for all the entire battle except for this one kill. He managed to take out Gerlach Motormold, put him out of action by opening up with his heavy bolter directly into him. So because of that, nets himself his very first kill. However, all the way across the other side of the battlefield with Goldcore Motormold, who's the Plague Marine who's carrying a plasma gun, he's kind of upset that his brother Gerlach got shot, so he opens up his plasma gun directly into Zekir Canislar. Managed to put a flesh wound on him as well, so he didn't die, but at the same time, though, he is kind of suffering from that, so he will need to roll off in the morale phase to see if he is shaken or not. For the rest of the battlefield, however, the shooting phase is pretty much ineffective, so we skip that, and we go directly to the combat phase. And once again, in the bottom center of the battlefield is another push between Zadu Vorlas as well as Zandiar the Black against these two Plague Marines. Neither side is able to break much ground against the other. It's either they're hitting and their opponents are making their armor as well as invulnerable saves, or they are hitting but they're unable to wound. It's just kind of like a mix, kind of like a little comedy of errors taking place. It's because both sides are both high strength, high toughness characters with good armor saves. So it's really hard for them to, like, trying to one-up each other for the most part. And combat for the most part was also pushed here in the center of the battlefield as well. Telos the Perfect wasn't able to do anything against those Plague Bearers and against Festivus the Billman. At the same time, they weren't able to do anything back to him as well. The only real action that took place for the most part was Ashrock the Mad. He managed to finish off that Poxwalker that he was fighting, and he charges across the battlefield directly into Festivus the Billman and currently engages him in close combat. But aside from that, that's pretty much it for the most part for the combat phase. And I forgot to mention up here in the top of the battlefield, finally, my Icon Bearer, Trudge Deathbile, he's actually finally to put off the last wound on Trestle, the Chaos Cultist. Managed to kill him, also fall through 3 inches as well, and starts making his way directly across the battlefield. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the morale phase. And unfortunately for Zekir Canislar, during the morale phase, he did fail his cool check with his leadership test, so because that he is shaken, he will not be able to do anything for the next round either. And that pretty much makes up the turn for this one. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the end of turn number 3. As you can see, combat is pretty much just being bogged down the center as well as the bottom center of the battlefield, and for the most part, that's where pretty much everyone is kind of concentrated for the most part, just trying to push through that center line because there's a stalemate breaking right there in the middle. So with the end of the turn there, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and both the Death Guard and Emperor's Children roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to turn number 4 for the Emperor's Children this time around. As you can see, once again, not much is really happening for terms of movement. Everyone's pretty much engaged in close combat. For the most part, everyone is still kind of engaged with their targets. The only real dramatic movement is really taking place on the bottom of the screen there. First of all, Telemach and Lyris, he does no longer pursue into the center of the battlefield, but rather hooks to the left and makes his way directly to the bottom of the objective marker there on the left-hand side. While that's occurring, of course, that Goldcore Muttermold as well as Shurlo the Riven, they start moving from the saloon across the battlefield directly to that bottom left-hand corner, trying to engage Telemach and Lyra. So we got 2 Plague Marines armed with plasma guns making their way there. Everybody else is pretty much where they're located at because they're currently engaged in close combat. So here's a close-up of Telemach and Lyris protecting the last objective marker on the left-hand side right next to that rule pile. He's right there with Zekir Canislar. And here's a close-up of Golkor Muttermold as well as Shirlo the Ribbon making his way as quick as they possibly can around the left-hand side, trying to make their way directly to the bottom left-hand corner of the battlefield. And here's a close-up of the center of the battlefield where everyone is kind of stuck in this huge melee taking place in the middle of the battlefield between Plague Bearers, Possessed, as well as the Bellman, as well as that Chaos Cultist Champion. And finally, there's a close-up of the top right-hand corner with Glouch Gulugori as well as Urg the Pestilent making their way directly towards Jago, the Chaos Cultist with the Heavy Stubber. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the Psychic phase. So in the Psychic phase, Telemach and Lyris has to change up his abilities. He's out of range in order to use Cursed Earth on his Possessed, so because of that, the Possessed lose their +1 to their invulnerable save. However, Telemach and Lyris does cast Psybolt, manage to put a Flesh Wound directly onto Golkor Muttermold, so now he's got a Flesh Wound on him. And because of that, Telemach and Lyris decides to cast Iron Arm on himself, giving him +2 to his Strength and +2 to his Toughness as well. So Telemach and Lyris right now is Strength 6, Toughness 6, with the 4 wounds and 3 attacks. So he's actually pretty deadly for a sorcerer who can, kind of generate the music there for his Chaos Possessed for the most part. However, it doesn't do him very much good, and the reason why is because Golkor Muttermold as well as Shirley the Ribbon decide to take a risk, and they both open up with supercharged shots from their plasma guns, opening up directly onto Telemach and Lyris. In the end, when it was all said and done, they're able to put 2 wounds directly onto that Master Possession, so he is half of the way dead. It takes 2 more shots, and he will definitely be dead, and, net the very first commander kill for our campaign so far. So with that, we go directly to the combat phase, and finally some headway takes place in the bottom of the screen. Zaydu Vorlas is able to put out Bubo the Rancid, managed to put that guy out of action, and because of that, he now engages the very last Plague Marine, and there's little ruins here that they're fighting in. However, in the center of the battlefield, though, things are currently still in a stalemate, as not much headway is being made for the most part. As you can see, Ashrock the Mad does suffer a wound, taking a wound actually from Festimus the Bellman. At the same time, Festimus the Bellman also suffers a wound as well, that one coming from Telos the Perfect, which is the Chaos Possessed here right beneath him. At the same time, the rest of the combat is pretty much a wash for the most part. Everyone else is able to cause more injuries beyond this. So with the combat phase over, we go directly to the morale phase, and first of all, Golkor Muttermold fails his leadership test, actually is shaken after being shot with a Psybolt, so because of that, he just stands his ground as much as nothing for this next turn, because apparently that Psybolt just kind of shook him to his core. I guess Death Guard not used to being wounded that way. However, there's some good news for the Emperor's Children, as Zekir Canislar was able to manage to get back his nerves, so he's no longer shaken, so he'll be able to participate in the next turn. But Kaifix, the Chaos Cultist Champion who was fighting against, against Dulan Slint, however, he suffered a flesh wound in the combat phase, and he is currently shaken as well, so he will not be doing much of anything for the most part. And finally, for the last action for the turn, Telemach and Lyris burns up a command point and destroys the third of the objective markers in his end of the deployment area, and also nets himself another victory point for the Emperor's Children. However, in the end, when we roll for our d6 to see if the game goes beyond this point, it did not actually happen, so because of that, the game immediately ends, securing a win for the Death Guard in the very first battle report for our campaign, the Quarantine Chronicles. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this game is now officially over. Alright, so this is the after action report for Quarantine Chronicles Battle Report number 2, and this one ended up being a victory for the Cradle of Filth. They managed to secure 6 victory points as opposed to the 4 victory points scored by the Shrieking Masquerade. And as you can see from this battle report, this game went much smoother this time around. That's because the rules actually follow the rules a lot closely this time around, so that was actually kind of nice. And I was able to remember my morale phase, which was really nice and important because you can see how much that affects the game when characters are shaken. They can't do much of anything, so because that does really have a big effect on the game for the most part as well. Some of the things I've taken away. First of all, starting with the Emperor's Children. The Emperor's Children are extremely deadly in combat. That was something I was not expecting seeing this in this battle report. Their Flawless Perfection special rule makes it that they're always charging, always fighting so long as within 1 inch of their enemies. So that really helped out Ashrock the Mad, who's the Zealot specialist, because he got +1 to his attacks and to his strength every single time he charges. And since he's always within 1 inch of somebody in the combat phase, he's pretty much charging the entire time, getting that bonus, making him really, really deadly as well. Psychic phase was also really important, powerful for the Emperor's Children as well. I was really actually impressed to see how the Master Possessions buffs really helped out the Possessed, made those guys much more difficult to kill and to wound. And I think that's the reason why the Possessed were lasting so long, kind of bogging down everything right in the middle of the battlefield as well. Unfortunately, though, they were not able to break past the Death Guard to achieve the other objectives to destroy it, but, you know, that's the way it kind of breaks out for the most part. Now, let's go on to the other side of the battlefield. When it comes to Death Guard, those guys are extremely tough to kill. They really have high toughness, they have really good armor saves, and they also have a 5 ward save with disgustingly resilient. Very, very difficult to kill. I was actually interested to see exactly how much damage they're able to sustain for most of the time. Also, the Tallyman's 7-fold chant ability, which is the commander for the Death Guard, he was actually really cool because he kept on going command points flowing for the most part. Now, you really didn't really see much dramatic use of tactics in this battle report for the most part because most of my command points were spent for rerolls and getting +1 to hit and +1 to wound, that kind of thing for the most part. Not much of the bigger ones just because, you know, I thought it was more important to actually land blows instead of, you know, spending command points, but that 7-fold chant really helped out, and I think about half of the command points I spent for the Death Guard they were making back every single time as well. I was also really surprised with the shooting in this game, especially this time around. I did remember to include the obscured special rule with cover to get the -1 to hit, and it really showed how that really affects the shooting game in this game and kill teams. So it's much more combat oriented and less shooting, as I was pretty surprised by that one for the most part. You really need to move up closer to your enemy and really assault to get within assault range, so that way your shots really do count, so that way you can get rid of that obscurity modifier, which really helps out as well. In the end, though, I was really happy with this game. I am learning a lot about kill team. I'm learning a lot about these 2 different kill teams they had especially, so that part is kind of cool. Now, at the same time, though, solo wargaming is still kind of weird for me. It is kind of knowing, you know, it's kind of weird knowing the fact that I know exactly what's good at my opponent's doing because I'm fighting against myself, which is actually kind of funny, but I do it for you guys because you guys deserve good content and you deserve battle reports, and that's what I do that for. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. You guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news on this channel. That's going to do it for this one, you guys. You guys stay safe out there. You guys stay healthy. Remember to wash your hands and to self-quarantine. You guys stay classy. I'll catch you guys next one. Peace out.